Hello, hello, hello. Have you ever noticed that when things are going well, you feel physically healthy, you've got a great support network, everything is going well in your life, that all of a sudden something happens to throw you off? So that's what I want to talk about today when we get triggered and how it might relate to our wellness. My name is Linda. I'm your back in the groove again coach. I'm here to help you live your best life now so that you can love what you're doing. And today we're talking about wellness, Wellness Wednesday. And I want to talk a little bit about wellness first, and then I'm going to get into emotional wellness. I'm going to share my screen with you right now. If you give me 1 second, I'm going to share my screen with you. Last week, I did talk about what is wellness. And you know that there's a lot of different definitions of wellness. So I'm going to share with you this beautiful wheel that shows us the 6 dimensions of wellness, right? You could see in this particular model, because there are different models, we can see in this particular model that it looks at environmental and emotional, intellectual, physical, social, and spiritual dimensions of wellness, right? So we know that wellness is a holistic perspective on how to stay healthy, how to remain healthy. And now I'm going to talk specifically about emotional wellness. And I'll explain to you what I mean by triggering and the relationship between mindset and well-being. So I'm going to share with you my screen. We're going to look at the definition of what emotional, that's what we're talking about today, the emotional dimension. So the emotional dimension, and I'm reading it out loud so that you could also see it might be a bit small on the screen. It requires ongoing self-examination, and it includes the ability to express and accept a wide range of feelings in yourself and others. Uh, You have to engage in satisfying relationships based on mutual trust and respect. Helps you to understand your limitations and be confident in your unique abilities. Helps you to cope effectively with stress. So you can see how when we are not taking care of our emotional side, when we're not maybe expressing our emotional side, how maybe we won't be as healthy as what we could be. It also talks here about certain practices that demonstrate emotional wellness, and that includes being positive about yourself and your life, being satisfied with your performance, coping with life's up and downs. And this is where I want to talk a little bit about a situation that happened. Hello, situation that happened to me on the weekend. So I was out of town visiting with my father, and my father was experiencing pain. I need to say that he had injured himself and he was in pain. So we were talking, and he asked me to do something, and I asked him questions about what he wanted me to do. And he said to me something like, "Well, don't you understand any English? Can't you read English?" And he was really rude. He was rude and insulting. And that, his behavior, triggered me. It triggered me. I'm wondering, whoever's watching, have you ever been triggered before? Have you ever been triggered before? So I'm talking about wellness and mindset and the relationship between that. And I specifically talk about emotional well-being. So he triggered me. And when I finished talking with him, I left his apartment because he wanted me to pick up some things. But I felt like a child. So the way that he said, "Don't you understand any English?" The way that he said it, the tone that he used upset me, first of all, right? It really upset me. And it brought me to when I was a kid. And for just a few minutes, I didn't feel confident to do anything. I didn't feel confident to drive the car safely. I didn't feel confident into purchasing the newspapers that he wanted me to purchase. I was doubting that I would be purchasing the right newspapers, right? So I got triggered. I got triggered. Now, I knew that I was triggered. I could tell that I felt triggered, but we don't always feel that we know when we're triggered. We don't always realize it. And the reason it's related to wellness, or in this case, emotional well being, is, if I believed what those thoughts were telling me, for example, you're not going to be able to choose the right newspaper. Oh, maybe I should call him to see what kind of what newspaper he wants. So I was doubting my ability to make a decision because I had been triggered from my father's tone of voice. You could see how that trigger affects something else. It affects my thoughts. It affects my emotions. I was nervous. I was doubting. And it could have affected my behaviors as well, right? So if I believed, oh, you're right, if I believed what he told me, that I don't really understand English properly, which is not true, but if I believed it, and if I started believing the voices in my head saying you won't be able to choose the right newspaper, or whatever that voice tells us, because this is an example, of course. If I believed everything that I was thinking, I would have continued experiencing that. And I would have changed my well being. I would have doubted probably more things than just what those thoughts were telling me. So you could see how emotional well being, taking care of our emotional well being, and I'll share my screen with you again here so that we can review. Um, review that part. Just a second. I'm going to share that part of the screen again. Okay. Oops, there you go. Right here, I mentioned that, and this is all part of dimensions of wellness. I shared that wellness has different dimensions, right? Has different areas, not just physical. It's not just physical, but also emotional, and that's the part that I'm talking about today. So, being positive about yourself and your life. So practices that demonstrate that I'm emotionally well would be to be positive. But when I start doubting myself because I got triggered, and that was just my dad's tone, but sometimes we can also be triggered by what we hear on the radio. We could be triggered by news that we hear, by what our friends are telling us. We can be triggered in many different ways, and it changes how we feel or how we react in a certain situation. So I need to be aware of that, right? I need to be aware that my emotions are being affected so that I can tell myself, that's not true. You are a confident person. You do know what newspapers to get. Like in the example, my father had asked me to pick up some newspapers. And one of the newspapers that he wanted wasn't available. And I made a decision to choose a different newspaper. But the voices in my head were saying, he probably doesn't want that newspaper. I was doubting my ability to make a sound decision. So when we are practicing emotional wellness, it talks about being non-judgmental. Now, being non-judgmental in our approach to others, but I'm going to add being non-judgmental in how we feel as well. Saying no to certain things without feeling guilty, owning to your mistakes and learning from them. So this is all part of emotional well-being. So if you're noticing that and I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. If you're noticing that, oops, let me just go back to stop sharing that screen. If you're noticing that you're doubting your ability to do things, or you're feeling a little bit nervous about certain things, or um, you're not really, you're not, uh, how can I say this? You're not feeling those emotions because sometimes we don't want to feel those emotions. It might prevent us from being well. I think emotions are there to tell us something. I think emotions are part of our whole being, and it's healthier to go through the emotions, to feel the sadness, or to feel the frustration, to feel the anger. It's not necessarily in the feeling of it, it's how we express that sadness or that anger. And so when we're talking about emotional well-being, it is about coping with life's ups and downs. It's also about being in touch with our emotions and feeling those emotions and sometimes working through those emotions. Now, oftentimes journaling does help. I don't know if you've ever done any journaling before. Now, in my case, when I talk about my father who triggered those feelings in me, I didn't have to journal because I recognized right away what was happening. That took a lot of work. Years ago, when I wasn't as aware of the voices that I'm hearing or the thoughts that are coming through my head or the beliefs that might be, running the show, when I wasn't aware of them, I would journaling, just start journaling so I can process the information. But now it's a little bit different because I've been working on that, and that's part of the work, of course, that I do when I help, when I help you live your best life now. So it takes time in some cases. So journaling does help. I'm not sure if you've ever done any journaling before. I'm just going to stop here for a second. I know I have somebody viewing me right now in I think you're in my on my business page, my Facebook business page, which is great. Hello. Have you ever tried any journaling? Have you ever journaled before? You can see the blue lights here. I've got my Bluetooth on. I don't really need them right now. I should just remove them. So journaling really helps. It helps to increase our awareness. It helps to just get things out on paper to dump. We sometimes call it a brain dump when we just get things out on paper, right? And that could also help us feel much better after we have written things out on paper. And that's part of taking care of ourselves. Wellness and mindset, right? There is a relationship between wellness and mindset. So my mind was triggered. I had to pay attention to what my mind was telling me, and I had to shift my mindset so that I would remain healthy, right? So mindset is the ideas and the attitudes in which you view things. So if I believe the thoughts that my voices were telling me about how I'm not good enough or how I'm not going to be able to make a decision, if I wasn't aware of that, I would not have been able to shift that attitude in order, and say, no, actually, you do know what you're doing. And so by reinforcing the fact that I'm on the right track and not listening to those voices, I can remain well. I can remain emotionally well. So keep at it. Be aware of what emotions you're experiencing and maybe use journaling, but talk about them and know that by expressing your emotions, by being aware of your emotions, by coping with your emotions, by saying no sometimes without feeling guilty, by being positive about yourself and your life. That is one aspect of wellness, and that is one part of your life that you at least know you can remain well. So next week for Wellness Wednesday, I'm going to talk more about the physical part of wellness. So stay tuned for that. That'll be next Wednesday. All right, this is Linda G. Robert, your Back in the Groove Again coach. I'm here to help you live your best life now so that you can love what you do. For more information, go to my website, backinthegrooveagain.com. I'm looking forward to working with you. There's a great workbook on that page. Grab it now, the Life Design Workbook. Grab it now because sooner or later it's going to get off that page on my website. So go to my website, backinthegrooveagain.com, and have yourself a great day. And thanks for watching. And you might have to watch it right from the beginning again, but thank you. And if you do watch it from the beginning, you can write down hashtag replay, write your comments down, and I will come back and review the comments and add. If you have questions, of course, I'll answer your questions as well. Have a great day. Bye now.